Okay, brilliant, Michael. Thank you very much. We'll get stuck straight in, folks. Emma, how are you keeping? Good to see more fellow people here as well. Good stuff. This person, incredible. 11 All-Stars, which is outrageous. I had to actually check that out when I was given that stat. I thought that couldn't be right, but it actually is. So there you go. So one of the greatest Gaelic footballers of our time or any time. Put your hands together, please, for Cora Staunton.
Thanks, Thomas. I know I've a South of Ireland accent, so I'll try to speak slow. It's one thing Australia taught me was try to speak slow, because a lot of the Australians couldn't understand my Mayo accent. But first of all, thanks to Kieran in particular and all Ulster GAA for having me here. It's obviously a privilege. I suppose in my time, you know, my dress will be on really steps to success, and I suppose what my career looked like. I'm going to obviously talk a little bit about through my time coaches that probably had influence over me, and I suppose how I got to where I did in my football career, AFL career towards the end of it, and just my career in sport in general. So I suppose I'll just start off, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from the west of Ireland, obviously Mayo, a very small part of Mayo in a place called Carnacon. We have a lads club which is called Ballina, so my first steps in football would have been with the Ballina boys team that have players like the two O'Connors, Killian O'Connor, Dermot O'Connor, Alan Dillon. So I suppose that's where my first foray in football. And you know, people always ask you, how did you get involved, or you know, who was the most important people to get you involved? And for me, it was the school principal. So I grew up in a school of 100 kids, and in my class I had 7 boys, 7 girls. But playing football or playing any sport for a female at the time wasn't the done thing. The boys went to Gaelic football, the girls went to Irish dancing. So I tried Irish dancing for one day, and I knew it wasn't for me. So I went home to my mother and said, can I get an exemption? I want to go and play GAA. So I suppose it really flourished for me in school. I was very lucky when I grew up. I played a number of sports in school. As I said, it was down to this one male principal that I had that kept pushing and driving me, and that was to play with him. The first sport I won anything in was handball. We were very lucky in our national school. We had a ball alley beside us. We used to play handball and racquetball every day, along with soccer, Gaelic, rounders, badminton, volleyball, any game that you can try and play, we were playing it day in, day out. And my vivid memory of school was that we were playing in a hall beside us, indoor soccer every day of the year, and it was Manchester United versus Inter Milan, and the score could be, by the end of the year, could have been 900 and something goals to whatever. But I suppose for me, that's where it really started. And you know, if I look at people that had an influence, it was that school principal. If he didn't continuously push me, he obviously knew I had talent, but he wanted me to succeed. So while he wasn't an actual coach, he was one of the most important people in my early days of coaching. I'm from a family of 8, so my mother and father certainly didn't have time to be running me around from here, there and everywhere. I'm the second youngest, so my dad's a farmer. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom for a good part of her life, so they just didn't have time. We're all very tight in age, steps and stairs. So I suppose he was the one that pushed me, and then the next step for me was the local boys team. As a 7-year-old, I was very lucky that I was asked there to come and join the boys team. So I played with the boys from the age of 7 till my last game was an under-14 county final. But I suppose people say, you know, what maybe stood you out from the rest in terms of football, and for me was always my skill. And I preach that now. I'm obviously with coaching Ballina men's team, but I also coach our under-13 girls team. And the most important thing for me, fitness and all that has to be done, and conditioning and all of that. But the most important thing for me was always skill. And what set me apart in my early days in female football was that I was very skillful. So when I was playing with the boys, I was never the quickest, I was never the strongest, I was very slight. So, but the only thing I could be better than that then was that I could be skillful. So that meant working day in, day out, kicking the ball against the wall, trying to do things that I'd be watching. People like Maurice Fitzgerald, when I was growing up, was my idol. I wanted to do things that he was doing. So that's my career kind of flourished in national school. I suppose when you come the age of 12, you normally follow your siblings wherever they go to secondary school. But for me, that wasn't a choice, because the secondary school that all my brothers and sisters went to, they didn't offer girls' sport. The only girls' sport they offered was volleyball. And for me, while volleyball was a fine sport, I really wanted to play Gaelic football. At this stage, I was well ingrained in it. So after probably 6 months of harassing my parents, I got to go to the secondary school I wanted, to Ballina Community School, who at the time were a very successful school for female sport, and particularly ladies football. So off I went to Ballina as a 12-year-old, and in first year won 2 All-Irelands, senior A and a junior A All-Ireland. I was lucky enough to be starting on both teams, and I suppose from there that's where my career really took off. For the next, at the end of that year, as a 13-year-old now at this stage, I got a phone call to come into the Mayo senior team for a trial, which, a lot of people are like, 13 is very, very, very young. It was at the time, you can't do it now, but at the end of first year as a 13-year-old, I got called in for a trial and got picked, and a couple of months later played my first game against Monaghan and scored 2-5, probably the worst thing I ever did. From there, I suppose that's where my Mayo career took off. And then I played 24 seasons with Mayo, and in that time I missed one National League season where I tore my ACL. But I never missed a championship match for Mayo, so I was just very lucky in terms of injuries and stuff. And they probably came later in the year when I decided to go the other side of the world. But I suppose for me, I was very lucky in my early days in Mayo. That's where I had all my success. From the age of kind of 16, 17 to 22, 23 is when we competed in 5 All-Irelands and won 4. And it was the first time Mayo ladies had ever got to an All-Ireland final. Obviously, everyone knows the story of the Mayo men and where their journey has taken them. So we won our first All-Ireland in '99, and that 2 years previous, Mayo would have been in the men's All-Ireland in '96 and '97. So football in Mayo, as everyone knows from watching, is huge. It's a bit of a religion down there, and we're hugely supported. But for me, I suppose, I talk about things, people say, what made you as a footballer, what's, the keys really, and, there's a couple of things. Consistency was one for me that was always huge. Consistency in training, consistency in everything I did in terms of diet, sleep, all of that. Just consistency in life, that life was good, and consistency in coaches. So, my first coach that had, Barry, my principal, that had a huge impact on me, was our coach that won us the 4 out of the 5 All-Irelands. And I suppose, he's a guy I still talk to today, Finn Egan. And I always look back and go, why was he the one that, what did he ingrain in me? And it was the passion for the game and the passion for coaching and the small little detail. So there's a few people that know me that have seen me on the field, and I'm a very different animal on the field than I was off the field. I'm quite reserved and shy, but in terms of on the field, I was probably a little bit different. But I'm the type of player that I didn't just need to know what I was doing, I needed to know what everyone else in the pitch was doing. So I could tell you what our cornerback was meant to be doing, what our midfielder. So I was always into that kind of detail and wanting to know exactly why, and a lot of the time throughout my career I was nearly like an on-field coach, because I was trying to learn all the time. But I suppose throughout my career, I'd say one of the biggest things for me is resilience. Before our first All-Ireland in '99, I'd have lost my mother. 10 months previous to that to cancer. She'd have been sick for 3 years. So she'd have been sick from the end of first year when I was a 13-year-old till the age of 16. So for me, I fell out of love with sport after my mother passed away. As a 16-year-old, I gave it up for a short period of time. I was really angry at the game. I was just angry in general. But as a 16-year-old growing up in rural Ireland, and that's 25 plus years ago, I didn't really know what was happening. I suppose it took me till I was probably 35, 36, and I had to write a book and sit down with someone and tell them my story. that I realised at the time. I was obviously grieving, but rural Ireland back then, you just got on with things. Once my mass happened and life went back to normal. But I was very, very lucky to the people of my club, the county, that every day of the week I'd have someone drive to my house to say, "Are you coming back to football? Are you coming to this match? Are you coming to this training?" And I was like, "No, I really don't have any interest." But week after week after week, I had coaches that had come in to the house, pick me up, sit me in the car and go and watch a match or go and watch training. And eventually I fell back in love with the sport as a 17-year-old then. And, I never looked back. And the importance of sport in that time for me was huge. Was huge for my family. As I said, we went on a run with Mayo for the next 5 years. We were in Croke Park every year. We were winning All Irelands, and it was a brilliant time for me. So that resilience, as a 13-year-old to a 16-year-old going through that was difficult, but that resilience was really helped me in my later career in football, whether that was through loss, through defeat, through injury, whatever it might be. Also in 2003, I'd have lost one of my best friends who was a club mate of mine. We won our first All-Ireland with Carnacon in 2002. So I was very lucky in 2002. We won the All-Ireland with Mayo and we won the All-Ireland with Carnacon 8 weeks later. And obviously that's a very special time. I was lucky enough to be captain. And probably 7-8 months later, we lost one of our teammates. And again, that resilience of losing someone and driving you on was huge. Was huge for the club, was huge for me personally. And for people that don't know, I've been lucky enough, I've grown up in a very successful club. People are always asking what was been the success of the club. I'm still unsure. There's probably a number of factors. So my time playing for Carnacon, we won 21 county titles in a row at senior level. We won 16 Connacht titles and we won 6 All-Irelands, competing in 10. So through that period of time, people always say, what's the keys to it? And the key to it is that we had built a culture in the club, no matter who you are, if you're the big name at the top, or if you're only a young girl coming in at 14, 15 years of age, everyone was challenged in the same way. It didn't matter. That 14, 15, 16-year-old had to work as hard as the person, who might have been there for years. So for us to create that really, really strong team, every year we brought through a couple of younger players. That doesn't mean they might see game time straight away, or they might have an impact straight away, but certainly within 2 or 3 years they're having a massive impact and helping us get over the line. So for us, that drive within the club, pushing each other on, challenging each other, and particularly in female sport, can be a thing that whole challenge area at times in my career wasn't always the best thing to do. But as a sports person, you always love to be challenged. Even now, and we're talking about the new rules, as a coach, trying to get your head around them and trying to work ways out, and you're sitting at home wondering what's the best format to play. How can you get the edge? How can your team get the edge? So I think that challenge piece is really important to younger people. It's how the piece is delivered in terms of the message that you're delivering to them. I suppose for me, my club was very successful. I was lucky every time we'd lose with Mayo, maybe in a September, August, whatever time, you're straight back into club, and you normally have a good run of it till December. So they have played a huge part in my career, and that's where I suppose now is for me is to give back. As I said, I'm involved with under 13 girls team at the moment. I probably don't have the time to be involved with them because, as I said, Ballina takes up a lot of my coaching time, but I feel it's my duty to give back to them because there's been so many coaches in the club that got me to where I am today. It just doesn't happen by yourself. It was that coach that I spoke about at Mayo that gave me my drive and passion for the game and gave me that kind of drive to learn the game even more and nearly become obsessed with the game. So I think it's really important as a coach that you give back. Took me a long time to realise I was a role model. People might laugh at that. I probably didn't realise it as well in my mid-20s. Didn't want the limelight. As I said, I probably became a teenage superstar overnight. As a 15, 16-year-old, when females weren't getting sponsorship deals or on ads and stuff, I was getting them. I didn't want them, but I suppose you have to for me, it was always important that, you were someone that was the first to do it. And I find that now, whether that's on television or whether it's in coach or wherever, or whether it was in Australia, someone has to do it. And in terms, when I wrote a book a number of years ago, again, it's not a thing I didn't want to really tell my story to anyone, but I felt it was important for young people growing up, and it wasn't just girls, but young people growing up, that they can, go to a bookshop and pick up a story about a female sports person. So, I think that's a really important area to me. I suppose right throughout my career with Mayo, there's been ups and downs, there's been low days, there's been high days, there's been a lot. I wouldn't change anything for the world. I loved every day that I went out and trained and challenged myself as best I can to be the best I can. I suppose from Mayo then towards the end of my career, everyone thinks you're going to retire. I was 35 and I get a phone call, or I meet a guy in China to see what I have any interest in going to the other side of the world and playing AFL, which was random. I met a guy, actually an Ulster guy from Cavan, Nicholas Walsh, in China at the Asian Games, and he was a part of a club in Sydney and asked me would I have interest in playing AFL. That was in October. I said absolutely not, Nicholas, I'm nearly at retirement. The following 6 months I had a call from C. Could he link me up with the head coach in the Giants in Sydney? And I said, sure, why not? So I talked to him and he said, would you be interested in coming over for a trial? But the person I am, this is in season. So he said, I'll send my son over from England. He lived in England, his son, to watch a game. So he came over and watched a game in August. And I'm still like, well, I can't go anywhere. Mayo got to the All-Ireland that year. Carnacundin were straight into the club. And for anyone that knows me in terms of training consistency, I go back to, I could count probably on 2 hands how many training sessions I've missed with Mayo in my 24 years. If I didn't train, I wasn't going to be able to play. So I said to him, there's no chance me to be able to go over. We lost the All-Ireland against Dublin in 2017, straight into club series, won a county title. I had to be out there before the 25th of October. We were in a Connacht club semi-final at this stage, and it's coming very close to the 25th of October. So eventually I get out there on a Tuesday, which is the 24th of October, do a trial, asked me would I like to sign, kind of said yes, no, and I was coming back because I was in a Connacht final. Signed on a Wednesday, flew back on a Saturday morning, played a Connacht final, went to a replay, won the Connacht final, got to the All-Ireland final and won that. So won the All-Ireland final on a Sunday and flew to Australia on a Tuesday to start my AFL career. Let's just say that time in the airport and that 24-hour whatever flight it is was taxing, to say the least. Arrived in Sydney on a Thursday morning, was straight into pre-season. I really thought I was going to Australia for 1 year. For me, growing up, I always wanted to be a professional sports person. Not that I really knew what a professional sports person, but I wanted to be Roy Keane. I'm a huge Manchester United fan. Not a good time to be a Manchester United fan now, but back in the days it was good. So growing up, I thought I was going to be Roy Keane. I thought I was going to play for Manchester United, not knowing that there's no opportunities in my time to play professional sports as a female. Very few. My only female role model growing up was Sonia O'Sullivan. I hate long distance running, so that was never going to be the case. But when the opportunity came to try professional sport, I said, why not? But I'm very loyal to where I'm from, so at the time it was fine because I could go over and play and come back and play for Carnacundin. So that ticked all boxes. So went over in the first 8 weeks. I hated it. It was a new challenge. You're going from the top of the tree in Ireland to now being bottom of it, and a long way to climb it. It's a very big tree. When you went over, there was a lot of people that wasn't sure about you, had no respect for you. They weren't too sure about Gaelic football. Were you going to be any good? You were taking a spot on the list. So for me, again, it was the challenge. I loved the challenge of having to try and figure out this game and get better. And probably within 12 weeks, I was obsessed with the game. I loved it. I loved all the little intricacies of it. I use a good bit of it now in the GAA for coaching, just different drills that we'd have learned throughout the time over there. But I suppose I just love the challenge of trying to get better and better and try to be respected by your teammates. I had been probably new into a team since I was about 13 years of age. So I suppose that was really important to me. So 8 weeks in, we play our first practice match over there, and in an instant it all turns around. I played quite well in the first practice match, and everyone loves you after that. So as I said, it was meant to be a year journey. Ended up playing 6 years over there. Lucky enough, even though I had multiple breaks over there, I didn't miss a game, just the way it fell. But in 2019, my second year there, I decided to stay over for an extra kind of 6 weeks to play a bit of club over there before I came back and played club with Carnacon, just to get used to the game, because I knew I was coming back and I wanted to play more football. So my first club game over there, I had the ball and I was being tackled by someone and I broke my leg in 4 places. So I was told, I was 37 at the time, I remember going into hospital, having emergency surgery to straighten the leg, to be told by the surgeon, you'll do well to walk properly again, don't worry about playing. To be in the bed on a Saturday night, to have my second surgery on a Monday, to Googling all these things about, quadruple leg breaks, how do you get back, what's the time frame, and all that was in my mind, genuinely, this has happened on the 4th of May. The Carnacon will be possibly in a county final sometime in September. I was doing the maths in my head, is there any chance I get back? So my goal was to get back to play for a county final. At this stage I probably had a 9 to 12 month recovery, and that was probably, I think it was just under 5 months. So for me, again, it was either attack rehab, prove everyone wrong. I probably learned in that period of time, throughout my career, I'm one of these people that spend my time, I'm motivated by doubters. If someone tells me I can't do something, I'm motivated by them. So I was told by a couple of people over there in the club, there's no need to push yourself hard, you've done very well over here. It's very difficult to get back, all these different things. And I was like, 2 weeks later, I got the stitches out. I was lucky I didn't have a cast. I had metal work put in. I'm sitting on a stationary bike cycling. 40 seconds the first time, that was good. 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, rehab within the club. And my goal, while they didn't know over there, was to get home. They would let me home until I was able to run. So once I was back running and flying, I got home the week before the county semi-final. Didn't play in the county semi-final. Come on, with about 10 or 15 minutes to go in the county final. Played the next game against Kilkerr and Clonberne in the county semi-final. We lost that, but played the full game. So no, I didn't tell them over there at the time this was happening, because they're contracted, so they wouldn't be too happy. But they found out not too long afterwards. But went back to Australia. I was lucky enough, played 4 more seasons after that. No issues with the leg. Was back in full training. So I suppose that resilience and mental toughness, and you look at the Irish over there, they think we're a little bit, a little bit touched or a little bit something different, because we're the type of players that play through injury all the time, and we're just very resilient. And for me, it always came from the GAA, that resilience, that drive. And my time in rehab over there, when I was rehabbing my leg, they just couldn't get over or drive and to do things. So I think, that to me had all come from my GAA background, and wanting to succeed. It came from my club, it came from Mayo. But like, if I was to say, a couple of things it's made me the sports person I am, it's consistency in training. And when I say that, like, even over there, they're very good at looking after you if you're an older athlete, and take time out. I never missed a training over there, and I broke multiple bones with a couple of surgeries on my nose, my thumb, my leg. Rarely missed a training. Rarely missed a training with Mayo. It was always consistency in everything I did, as I said. That was a huge thing for me. The resilience piece was huge. The stronger you are up here as an athlete, having that mental toughness is so important. And I think the younger cohort growing up today, that's a thing that coaches really have to work on. It's a thing that we probably don't have as much now as we did 10, 15 years ago, but I think it's so important. For me, then transitioning from playing to coaching, I've probably learned a couple of things. How I was as a player, isn't at times going to be the ideal thing as a coach. The biggest thing I probably learned is empathy. I wasn't very empathetic as a player. To the others around me, I think it's hugely important now as a coach that, you know, you get to know the person as a whole. And when I reflect back on and look at the good coaches that I had, it was like, that's why they were good. They knew everything about us. They knew everything about your background, your family. So now as a coach, the biggest thing I do is build relationships with players first, get to know them, see where they are at, are they in school, are they in college, are they working, have they a boyfriend, have they a girlfriend, you know, what's family life at home, is there anyone sick, what's general life. So once their life is very good off field, or as best it can be, or you know what their challenges are off field, normally on field is a hugely important, then it goes very well for them. So I suppose that's the side that I probably didn't have. I figured out that everyone learns differently. And I always try to think back, what way was I as a learner? I was a learner that had to be shown. So you could show me everything here on the board over here, and it's the same in Australia. I'd be watching something and I'd have no idea. They'd be giving us diagrams and videos, but until I actually went out in the field and actually done it, then I knew it. I had to do it once or twice to figure out, okay, this is what they're asking us to do. And there was so much over in Australia to take in that I knew at times I only could take in one thing at a time. But it's really important to know that there's different types of learners. And you have to get through to them. That's your job as a coach. If you're not getting through to every individual that's on your squad, then you're failing them. So I think they're certainly things that I learned in my time there. I think it's really important. Players want to be challenged. As I said that earlier on, they don't want to say, oh, you've done that really well, but they know that deep down that they haven't done that well. They want to be challenged all the time. They want to be challenged to get better, but it's to be challenged in the right way and use the right words and challenge them at the right time. And there's different players. I realised, and I had to realise quickly when I went into coaching, all players aren't wired like I am. So you have to figure out where they're wired. You know, do they need an arm around the shoulder more often, or do they need a kick in the backside, or, you know, if you want to get the best out of them, how do you do it? So for me, I'm only learning how to walk in coaching because I haven't been doing it that long. I'm trying to learn from coaches that I felt that had a huge impact on me. And I'm also trying to learn from ones that I didn't feel had a huge impact on me. But why didn't they? So, you know, that's probably the biggest thing for me. But as I said, if I was to say why my journey was successful, or, you know, why my career was successful or good, it was definitely down to the consistency in everything I did. The consistency and mental toughness are the two real reasons, I suppose, why I achieved and got to the top. And I suppose for young people, growing up, when I speak to young people, you know, they're the biggest things. And in terms of Gaelic football, why was I probably ahead of the posse at times? It was down to my skills. And I give that 4 or 5, 6 years playing with the boys was the reason that I was so skillful, because I had no other choice. So for me, they're just some of the journey, or some of the keys to my journey. It wasn't perfect. There was loads of things that were, you know, wrong, and you know, when I look back and I'd say I do them differently. But it was always for enjoyment. Even when I was in Australia and you're getting paid to play, it was never for the money. It was the challenge and the enjoyment of getting better. I loved it. Even now, when I still have to throw on the club jersey if they don't have enough, you know, or whatever, they might need me. I just love it. I love going to training. I love coaching. You know, whether it's our young girls or going out with the boys. Every day is a learning day, but I really enjoy it. There wasn't a day I didn't go and said this is a chore. I loved every minute about it. So I think that's important, especially to our young people when they have to enjoy it. You know, there's no point doing something. You're doing it as a hobby at the end of the day. So it's so important that you have that fun element in it as well. So yeah, I'm not going to go out or ramble on too much more. I suppose thanks a million for having me. Open to any questions that people want to ask me. Thanks again.
Cora, that was incredible. Just, you know, a lot of the stuff I kind of did know. Most of it I probably didn't. One thing did jump out at me. You said you were quite shy, quite reserved, quiet. You got up there and chatted for maybe over half an hour. You've no notes with you. Tomorrow you're working for RTE radio, live radio at Crook Park. That's not the actions of someone who is shy and reserved, and you made a difference there, saying on the pitch you were like a different animal, but you're off it now, but still able to do that. Has sport given you that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, off the pitch when I was younger, I was very shy and quiet. I suppose my early days, as I said, I was probably a bit of a teenage superstar. I was at functions and events as a 17 and 18-year-old, and you'd have Morris Fitzgerald over here, you'd have Roy Keane over here, or, you know, I was at events as a young person, didn't even know what reason I was at them. So I used to always hide behind people. I'd bring friends or whatever and say, you know, you do the talking and I'll just sit there. I think this probably just came over time, the confidence to speak. Which for me, I always found football pitch was the release. So probably a lot of my anger and stuff came out when I was training. I probably tried to be a perfectionist. I wanted everyone to be like me. But looking back, they can't all be like you. We have to have different, and I see it now in Ballina, we've all different types. But I couldn't understand if someone wasn't 100% committed. Why? And you know, why weren't they trying to get the best out of themselves? And at times, you know, on the pitch, I probably didn't deliver that message very well. But I was always in the best to try and strive to be the best. So, yeah, public speaking, I think, just come over time. It certainly wasn't a thing for me. You know, even in my early 20s, it probably took a bit longer to come, I don't know, just get the confidence to do it. But I always felt sport was the place, the football pitch was the most comfortable place I was. I could be anyone or do anything for that 60 minutes or 90 minutes, wherever long. I was just a different person.
I mean, there's so many things you can pick on in terms of the coaching piece, which is why we're here. You can see everybody has at least a coaching interest. There's one thing that really perked me up when you said the biggest thing you've learned in coaching is the ability and the need to show empathy. And you said you weren't an empathetic player. Star players tend not to be empathetic, in fairness, like, so you can't get off with it. There's always a perception around empathy, I find, and I could be 100% wrong, that there's a softness in empathy. If you show empathy, you're being soft. You're constantly being judged by a group of maybe 40 footballers, 40 hurlers down below. So, is it really that important, and how do you find that balance?
Yeah, I think it's important in today's society, and I haven't always got the balance right for coaching. There's certain players that are probably more empathetic too, because I know their situation, and then there's other players where I'm like, there's more in him, and yeah, I've probably gone too hard on him, but because I know there's more in him, I'm not giving him that full empathy. But I couldn't spell empathy as a player. I definitely couldn't. I wasn't empathetic at all. As I said, if you weren't, I had tunnel vision. If you weren't in that line of vision, God love you. And I probably look back on that and go, did that really help everyone around me? If I was more empathetic, would I have helped them go on to develop? I probably would have. But I was just, it was about winning. There was nothing else. There was no other show. But I do think it's really important. It's just people are motivated differently. People do need to be brought along, arm around the shoulder, and other people just need the opposite. So it's to figure out what type of player they are. All players can't be like me. They just can't. If you don't have players, a couple of players in the team that are empathetic or look after each other, then that's probably not a good thing. So yeah, that's what I felt. I was with Galway Camogie when I came back from Oz, and then I went in with the lads in Ballina. And that's the biggest thing I felt, that you have to know the person off the pitch to get the best out of them. If you don't know if they're come to training, and they might have the worst day because something's happened at home, a relationship is broken down, or someone's sick, or a child is, if you don't know these things, and then they're having a shit day of training, and you're then grilling them, is that the best for them? No, you put them aside and say, you know, Cora, what's wrong today, or whatever, and he'll tell you, then you're going to go a little bit easier on them, because you want to get the best out of them ultimately. You want your players to come to training and feel like they've been challenged, but they've also enjoyed the session and they've learned something. And there are the times I got frustrated, many a time, particularly at Baylor training, where I wouldn't have felt like that. And that frustration probably didn't go on the coach, and probably went out on the players, which is wrong.
Did you learn anything in Australia that you didn't know before you went out there, that you've brought back here or implemented that you think works? If there's one or two things that sort of, Jesus, what's this here? And then thought that's new?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of things. I learned that recovery is really important. There's brutal recovery. I was always train more. The more I train, the better I am. Probably.
Is that still the culture piece when you get the games?
It probably is. We're over there, less is more. And it depends on the time of the season. So in season, say, we play matches every 5, 6, 7 days, depending on the turnaround. We might only train once in the week.
See, it's interesting you say that. I remember the Rugby World Cup was on in England and Wales in 2015. I was sitting down with Paul O'Connell after the France game, I think it was, in the group stages. And no one had a long time, and I remember asking him just, but what's the difference? He was coming towards the end, that was going to be his small song. What's the difference? He's like, how much less we do. You know, when he was playing club rugby, he was temporary, there was more and more. He came out with a line, he said, our session this week was an hour and 4 minutes.
That's interesting. I was at a thing with Paul O'Connell about 2 months ago in Galway, and it's exactly the exact same thing. Less is more. Andy Farrell now gives them match week. He said there's 4 coaches, and all the 4 coaches think they're the most important. We get one key message to give to each player, but each session, so if it's match week for the Irish rugby team, or if it's match week for us over in Australia, less is more. You do one main session, and everything's about recovery, or just analysis on the team, the opposition that you're playing, or analysis of the match you just played. So, like, funny story that I got, because I obviously wanted to get better. I wasn't going to get better by watching footage over there. I needed to be out training in terms of skills over there. So the physios would be out from the time clock and says you can go out for 20 minutes kicking, and they would stand there and 19.5 minutes comes in, 30 seconds left, and 2 kicks and that's it. I was going, they were driving me into mention. I was like, I know my body at this stage, but they were like, no, we need you to be primed and ready. So that was definitely a thing that I took, that recovery was so important for you to be fresh and ready.
Were they ready?
Yeah, they were, yeah.
And you were?
Yeah. I still, skills-wise, once it wasn't anything that was overtaxing on the body, goal kicking over there, or stuff like we'd have an indoor cage there that you weren't actually doing, a lot of kilometres or stuff. It was fine. But yeah, normally they were right. Because your body's been bet and battered for, 80, 90 minutes on the Sunday, you've only one session that you can do in the week. So, but that's why you do your pre-season. That's why you train like a dog for whatever it is, 3 months, where you're training really hard so that your body's ready for that. So that's probably one thing. Tactically, how all games, all field-based sports are the same. So I've played rugby, soccer, AFL, and Gaelic, and how you can learn from each. So tactically, things we'd have done in AFL, that you can bring to Gaelic football. I'm not going to give away all the secrets now, but stuff, the drills that you have learned over there, around how you use your opponent. It's a huge thing over there. So you're one-on-one, I was a key forward, you're one-on-one at the top of the square. Over there, the referees or the umpires 100 metres away, they can be hammering you off the ball, they can pull you, that's not a foul. But how you can use your body to lose an opponent is one of the biggest things I learned. Because a lot of the stuff isn't in Asian, so you have to learn it. And it was interesting, after I broke my leg, I had to learn how to walk properly again, I had to learn how to run properly. So I became fitter and faster and stronger, and I had to learn how to do that from the start again. So it's, when you're learning a skill new, it's easier than if you're trying to train it to someone that has, hasn't learned it.
So you've always amazing experience in your back, you're taking your club under 13s. So if you're standing in front of them, and I appreciate that the nature of the season flies on, some sessions you're brilliantly prepared for all of it, maybe some not as much, but if there was one thing that you maybe are prepared for a session and right, this is what I want to get through today, of all what I have learned, what is that? And I appreciate it's very difficult to point out.
One thing I find with young people, the thing I've been teaching our young people, our under 13 girls doing this year, is how to create space. That's probably the biggest thing, that they don't know how to create space. So that's probably, I've spent a lot of time with different simple drills for them. Because at underage level, they have a tendency just to play all up the middle, up and down and up and down. But how you can be a better footballer if you learn how maybe, again, it's an Australian thing called a tick lead, so you might run out to the 21 and then you turn back and go out again. So teaching them different patterns of movement. It's fine when under 13 level or 12 or 11, everything will be straight, but the further the grades move up, now under 13 level, they're still in small goals. So when you move up to under 14, the bigger pitch. So how that space can be a benefit to you. But I remember being taught week after week by my coach in Mayo, as a 16, 17-year-old, how do we play 2 inside? And we were drilled into us, we've done drill after drill of how to play 2 inside. So just things like that, you can do your basic skills of solo and keep passing and all that, which is really important with them. But, small, minute stuff, and, even in our midfielders, teaching them, that how to be holding and going and stuff like that. So it's funny, there's one girl in particular, and she's in with Mayo under 14s now, but by the end of the year, I'm not very good at silence highlights either, because I find at that age I need to be coaching them, and it's not that you're only directing them, you're not actually shouting at them, but you're directing them, trying to help them within games. So I have an under 13 girl that by the end of it, she knew exactly what I wanted her to do. I didn't even have to look when she was there. But that's just kind of through training, and it's through matches telling them, okay, Anna, you need to go there, this is where you need to go. And they're just like sponges, they just take so much in. So it's different than when you go to a senior club team. You don't have to have that level of coaching. The coaching is very different in terms of what you're doing. It's still the same skills you're trying to teach, but it's at a different level and a different intensity.
Okay. Just before we wrap up, some times for the presidents. Anybody a question to Cora? Anybody want to share anything? This man here, yeah, I'll just jump down. Go for it, sir.
Thanks very much, Cora. That was very good. You talked a lot about toughness, mental toughness and resilience. What approaches do you have as a coach to develop that with your young players?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most difficult things in terms to build. What we do is in terms of, you try and do it in terms of conditioning. It's probably the old school way that you're still trying to do it. Different tasks and challenges that you might set them. Tasks that they're going to fail at. In terms of it might be that we do a point scoring competition which put them over onto their big foot. Or we just have little competitions at training where we might do, trying to kick into a box or whatever. But it's tasks that that they're not going to be doing very well at. And they're getting frustrated and they're failing. But then they continue to do it and you can see the progress in. Probably in the older group, a lot of it's structured just conditioning work that we might try and do. And just challenging them, we might do mad stuff as where, okay, we're training today to be talking Ballina, and within that morning or that night we'll change it. So a lot of footballers or a lot of sports people are creatures of habit. We want to, this is the way we're doing it. And if something changes, we kind of freak out. So it's just a change. You might change the environment, you might change training and stuff like that. So they're not just doing the same thing. For me, it was a big thing with running Australia. We wouldn't be in the same facility training doing the same thing. It could be a random text message. You're training on the beach, or you're going here, you're going to this gym, you're going to a rugby club. So just changing things up, because as I said, you're a creature of habit when you're getting football. You do this match day, this is what's done every morning, this is where I sit in the bus, this is where I sit in the dressing room. But a match isn't like that, a match is chaotic, so sometimes just read up the environment.
Brilliant, great question. We'll wrap it up there. Just one last thing before we go. You're taking Ballina's men's team. Culturally, that's still peculiar in this part of the world, unfortunately, but it is. Do you still remember that first time walking into that change room? Were you apprehensive? And just what advice would you have to challenge an environment like that? Because make it or lose it, it's still be an odd thing for some clubs and counties.
Yeah, I don't know of too many within Ireland coaching senior level. I'm not too sure of numbers. There's a few. Of course I'm apprehensive. But as I said, when I got the phone call to ask to be involved, I knew it was going to be another challenge. And you have to challenge yourself. You have to step out of your comfort zone. And you're walking into a Ballina team that have, current Mayo players and then a lot of former Mayo players, Derek Half, David Clark, David Reid, and guys who have won a lot of Ulsters, competed in a lot of All-Ireland finals, and are very good coaches themselves. But it was interesting, he's involved as David Clark as a coach on our team, and straight away he set the agenda down to the lads. Has anyone won more than she has or achieved more than they have? They know, sit down. So there is apprehension, but I always felt that I'm qualified enough and I know my stuff and I work at it. And I suppose, and I'll probably say it up there, the biggest thing for me is always being yourself. That's the biggest thing right throughout my career, is that you're authentic. So I kept trying to change what I was. I had the level of respect. They obviously knew me when I was in, I had that. But the only way they were going to respect me if I did the outcome of training, and the drills are good and training is good and we're performing well. And I suppose that was my role at the end of the day. But I'm supported. I've a really good manager, and we've a couple of guys involved in the coaching staff, and the lads are brilliant to work with. I've never felt that I shouldn't be there. Again, I've never Ballina, where I live, is an hour drive. I've never went home once. We must be in Ballina, I'd say 120 times this year. Or last year, I've never once gone home for training with one with him. I always go home, and I love it. And I probably spend the hour in my home talking to the lads, but every part of it's been brilliant. And it's like anything, if it's TV or if it's coaching or whatever it is. I'm not one of these sticking a token female for anything. If you're not good enough, you're not good enough. It's a male or female, the best person for the job. But if you do your work, it's like media or if you're a coach. If you do your work and you know what you're talking about is right, then you have to back yourself. And there's no other females there, but again, I was lucky I got the opportunity from a guy that hired me to ask me to do it. Not everyone gets that opportunity. There's female coaches out there that create the opportunity, but to try and get one is hard. I suppose my profile helped me get to get the opportunity.
Well, look, it's thoroughly well earned, clearly, and fantastic. Cora, that was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. Really, really insightful. And if you really didn't have much confidence growing up, you're not too bad out there. In fairness.
I better go out and learn about the new rules.
The worst I'm commenting on the next week in the middle of Baldy, so listen, big grand, we'll get there. So listen, thank you very much, Lee. Continued success and happiness as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Cora Staunton.